Thank you for taking the trip over here and really broadening the perspective on both the trends in green buildings, the business opportunities, and also the indoor environment. We had a chat here about, and you were all about, okay, creating buildings for the people in them. And then I thought, but what about if we looked at the building themselves as living people that we cared for? So we've had this thing, and James pointed out that people care about the oceans now because we found a whale with a lot of plastics in their stomach. Do you know what? What if we found a building with a lot of plastics in it? Wouldn't that be just... You wouldn't, yeah. So I think it's about flipping it around and starting caring about the buildings as living creatures. Do you have any thoughts about...
This is exciting. I've never personified a building like this. I would say that you have new ways to track and validate, not just the energy consumption, but also the air quality issues, the water quality, the light levels, the acoustic levels. So in the past, you trusted these four walls gave you what you needed, and now increasingly data is going to start to communicate just how well it's doing. So the idea that you could personalize or personify a building or a neighborhood and actually give it an identity around how it's doing, how it's breathing, I think that could be pretty special.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think data is going to be a huge enabler. You heard about some of the innovations in this space, so people are going to be able to monitor if their space is giving them what they need, if there's that sort of relationship with their building that they want. But I think it's often joked about by a friend of mine. People get more information on their breakfast cereal when they're purchasing that in the supermarket than when they buy a building. One of the biggest impact and biggest kind of potential items they'll ever purchase. And that's going to change, I think.
And I think also in personalized health, you touched upon how people are different, they have different health perspectives, but it's also more tailored. So I'm probably the only one in this room who has a chip inserted in my finger, so it's the first version of a chip, but they're hoping that these ones will have sensors so that you can monitor your own health, not on your phone, like in China, but that you can actually have real-time information about how you're doing with your health. But I also took a DNA test recently. That gives me back my predispositions for some of the illnesses. Yeah. And that, if I knew that I was predispositioned for some disease, and working in this building would make that risk higher to me, to actually getting that illness or Alzheimer's, which I'm predispositions for, you would not want to work there.
I love that you brought this up. I've never been asked this question before, but this is the field of epigenetics. So in the last 10 years, we are finding out that your genes turn on or off. So previously, the genes you had were the genes that you had. And now, depending on what you're exposed to, they turn on and off. We're looking at levels of 4 to 8 weeks that acute stress can actually manifest as to what genes turn on or off. So as a result of that, if you go to 23andMe or whatever and you do your genetic sequence, it'll come back and tell you, based on the population that it's also surveyed, where you stand. If you have a predisposition to Alzheimer's, and by the way, many of us do. So the other thing it'll say is the majority of what your genes will turn on or off has to do with the environment and behavior. So there's a huge disclaimer at the bottom that says, depending on what you do, depending on if you smoke, if you drink, if you manage your stress, your relationships, isolation, that gene may or may not turn on and off. And oftentimes they're coming back to say, eat more broccoli, be more active, manage your stress. The idea that people are coming with and they're armed with their own information. I will add the microbiome. That's the new thing to test. So get your microbiome and your genes, and then start seeing empowered people come in to workplaces that have stage 3 cancer, that are over age 55, they're immunocompromised, start to demand that they have better environments. And I don't honestly think it'll be too long before, unfortunately, there is some more punitive components to environments that are not taking proper precautions. Because now environments and buildings are speaking to you, and of course, what we understand about the body is also changing and empowering people with data to be their own patient and consumer of their health.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you. Give them a warm applause.